Hey, it's Ms. Brain going over the Precalculus Quiz 3, 2.1 to 2.3. This was taken on October 17th, 2019. Using use student work to go over the solutions for this quiz. Question number 1, factor completely. X to the fourth minus 8x squared plus 16. Remember, if you take the highest exponent and half of it is that number, so half of 4 is 2, then you can use this factoring by using the X box method. It's still a times c, which gives you 16, and down here is the b value, which is negative 8. Two numbers that multiply to be positive 16 and add to be negative 8 are negative 4 and negative 4. So the first term in the box always has x to the fourth, always. 16 is the last term, always goes to the bottom right. And then these two are essentially splitting that middle term, so they will always go in these two. So that gives you negative 4x squared and negative 4x squared. And then you just take out your common factor. X squared minus 4 minus 4. And then to double check your answer, you can always multiply the outsides to get the insides. Negative 4 times x squared, negative 4x squared. X squared times negative 4, negative 4x squared, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. This would give us x squared minus 4, x squared minus 4. And although you have a binomial here, you just add a 0. And then you can just do a times c again. So this would give you negative 4, and the b value would be 0, and our two numbers are 2 and negative 2, which the students have here and here. And then you have 2x minus 2's, and you have 2x plus 2's, and so your answer would be letter choice C. Question number 2 says, using the polynomial f of x equals negative 2x cubed plus 4x minus 8, explain how the degree and leading coefficient will affect the behavior. The degree is the highest degree, and that's the 3. This is odd, and just like every odd, the easiest odd is x to the first. You will start down, end up. The leading coefficient is this value right here. It's leading in front of the polynomial, so this is a negative. The negative will switch, basically reflects it over the x-axis, and so this person drew a graph to show that now it's, instead of starting down, it starts up and then ends down on the roller coaster. A is the correct answer because the degree is odd. The endpoints will point in opposite directions, so opposite directions. Same would be if I drew an arrow up here. So these are opposites. And because the leading coefficient is negative, pay attention, this one, the graph will increase from, or starting on the right side, to the left. So if you start here on the right side, and as you go towards the left, it goes up. This is kind of a tricky question, so A would be your correct answer. Question number 3 is telling you that it's not multiple choice, but you still need to circle the correct answer. So looking at this squiggly roller coaster, it's saying what's the degree of the polynomial? Well, you'll notice that they both start up, end up. That is a even degree. That would be correct. Remember, the easiest even we know is x squared. So always write something easy and you know when they start up. The leading coefficient is positive. I know it's positive because this is your graph, but if you put a negative sign in front, that would be graphs to point down. And of course, you put that into your calculator, then you'll recognize that it's reflected over the x-axis. What is the end behavior? Well, the end behavior, think about it, the end behavior is just these arrows. The end behavior is just these arrows. The left side, so the left side of the graph starts up, and then as you go towards the right, it also ends up. So even, positive, up, up is correct. Question number 5 is multiple choice, tells you to factor it completely. Notice if you take half of 3, it is not 2, it is 1.5. What does this mean? You can't put this into your X box method of factoring. So hopefully the first question you're always asking is, there a greatest common factor? Well, they all have an X in there. How do I know that? If you distribute, you get the original answer. X times x is x squared, and x times negative 72 is negative 72x. So your A value here is 1, B, and C. A times C is negative 72. Your B value is 1. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 72 are 9 and negative 8, but those add to be a value of 1. So if you notice, if your A value is just equal to 1, you can actually stop there because you see the 9, negative 8, and don't forget the x. So D is your correct answer. Now, if you don't understand that, you can continue on and still the same. The yellow here splits the B term, so you have negative 8x, so you have to add an x there, just like the student did. And 9 is 9x squared. First term you always put from inside the parentheses here. That would be x squared, and then the last term is negative 72. So what is the greatest common factor? There's an x, there's an x, there's a positive 9. This is a negative 8 because you know that negative 8 times 9 gives you negative 72. So on the outside, x plus 9, x minus 8, and then GCF x. D is your correct answer. Now I noticed something what the student did. I'm not sure, but maybe they were trying to check their answer. So they're saying x times x equals x cubed, which is your original answer. So you can even check your answer. Good thinking. All right, question number 6. Write a polynomial function in standard form with the zeros 5, negative 4, and 1. So we kind of did standard form is just all of your letters out, A, B, and C, and D. There's no parentheses, essentially. But what they've given you are the zeros, and what you would do is you can put it in this factored form. And the formula, if you think about it, is kind of like we kind of did something like this. You can kind of do P, Q, and R. It doesn't really matter, but if P is 5, that's x minus 5 like the student has here. If my Q value is negative 4, opposite of negative 4 is positive 4, and R is 1, so that would just be x minus 1. The student had to expand this, or in multiple ways, FOIL, but remember FOIL only works with binomials times binomials, so the student did x minus 5 times x plus 4, and we've been using this area model to multiply this box. The student got x squared, negative 5 times x is negative 5x, x times 4 is 4x, and negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. And then they combine like terms right here, so that gives me negative x. So the first two terms multiplies to this right here. Now the student recognized that you need to distribute. So they have this arrow here, so I would have done something like a 2 by 3 box. And then I would have just filled in something like this. But I want to go with what the student has, so that's okay. Let's do that. So I would have multiplied like that. The student did something different, but essentially the same thing. They're multiplying x to each of these terms. So let's see what they did. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times x squared is negative x squared right there. X times negative 20 is negative 20x. X times negative x is negative x squared. And then x times x squared is x cubed. And then you just combine like terms, negative 2x squared. And then these right here is negative 19x. So there you have this one. And then your answer would be B. So the front side should have, question number 6 is 2, 5 is 2. Question number 4, which does have, oh yeah, it does. 2, that's 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 for the front side, and then one point period, 1 point name, so 16. Question number 6, for your response, make sure I'll show you where you can box your answers. Given the parabola below, find an equation in standard form. So based on my graph, I have these, and these are my x-intercepts. So using these x-intercepts, I can write this into a factored form, because factored form gives us our a times x minus p, x minus q. And so now I'm just going to put in each of these in for my p and my q. And then also this one up here, let's use as blue. Although it says 4, that's a y-intercept. And I know that order pair is going to be 0, 4, which is x comma y. So every x value will get a 0, and every y value will get a 4. And then basically what we're doing is we're solving for a. So solve for a. That's what we're doing first. Let's solve for a. So my y value is 4. A value, x is 0. My p value doesn't matter. You can just, doesn't matter what you label them. So minus 2. X value is 0. Q value is 1. So you get 4 equals a. 0 minus negative 2, opposite of negative is plus 2. So 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. So I have 4 equals 2 times negative 1 is negative 2a. And then divided by negative 2, a should equal negative 2. And that makes sense because in standard form or any of our forms, when the a value is negative, like you had a negative day, you're smiling. I'm sorry, smiling, frowning. Okay, now that I have the a value, let's get an equation. So what do I need for the equation? So you're actually just going to use this one up here, and then we can just distribute to get an answer. Okay, so I'm just going to write y equals my a value of negative 2 so there in orange, there I have negative 2 x plus 2 and then x minus 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a box to multiply. So I got x plus 2, x minus 1. Let's go ahead and multiply. X times x gives me x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. X times 2 is 2x, and 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. And then I'm going to combine like terms, so x squared positive x minus 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute, because that's what standard form does. And you will get negative 2x squared minus 2x plus 4. So this is standard form. Standard form. This one is intercept, or they also call it factored form. Intercept or factored form. Sorry, you didn't see that. Oh, great. Let's try that again. So this is intercept or factored form. I just distributed the negative 2, and I get this. Okay, so it says using the graph above, fill in the blank. This is called, the sentence frame is our end behavior as x. So this yellow box I'm about to draw is always the same. You always have one positive and one negative. And the reason I'm kind of zoomed out so you can see the graph, as x values go towards positive numbers, so that's going towards the right, what happens to my graph? The roller coaster is going down. So down is negative infinity. Remember, if you get stuck on that, you can always do this. So on the x-axis is positive, positive on the y or f of x values. This is negative numbers and negative numbers. As you go to the left on the x-axis, the graph is also going down. Down means negative infinity on f of x. Question number 7, graph the polynomial and make sure to label the x-intercepts. Okay. If you notice what we have here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, and if you look at your factoring flowchart, 4 terms, the only thing you guys know at this time of the quiz is to factor by grouping. Factor by grouping. Let me show you 2 ways to factor by grouping, and then you can kind of pick one. Hopefully I showed you guys both of these methods. The first one is just using a box. Let's draw a box. I'm going to basically put in my 4 terms into the box. have x cubed plus 6x squared, negative 4x, and minus 24. Greatest common factor here would be x squared. Greatest common factor is x. Greatest common factor here, I'm not sure if it's going to be a positive or negative 6. So I'm going to go over here and I realize that this is a negative 4. So this one has to be a plus 6. Just double check. X squared times x is x cubed. 6 times x squared is 6x squared. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times 6 is negative 24. And then if I have x squared, I'm going to put 0x minus 4 right there. And then x plus 6. The reason why I did that is right here you can do your x method. Let's just do it down here. And in your x method, a times c is negative 4, b value is 0. These two numbers are 2 and negative 2. So x plus 2, x minus 2 for this trinomial. And this one is just x plus 6. So that's just taking the polynomial to factor, and the reason why we do that is so then you can factor it by you can graph it by multiplicity. Let me show the other method. Number 2, I call it, I don't know, double GCF. So if I take just the first two terms, let's just rewrite the problem. If I just look at these two, then I realize that the greatest common factor is x squared. And then what's left is just x plus 6. If I go over here and figure out what's the greatest common factor, that would be negative 4. What is left? X plus 6. Remember, you can always distribute to check your answers. So that's the first greatest common factor. The second greatest common factor, how do you know you're doing this method correctly, is that these two are exactly the same. So this would be x plus 6 and then x squared minus 4. And then you would do the same thing we did over here, and then you can realize that when you factor, you get the same thing as we got over here. So this x plus 6, and then x, this right here is going to be x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay, so either of those methods would give you the x-intercepts. And it says now, let's graph the polynomial, make sure to label the x-intercepts. So basically what you're doing is you're algebraically showing me where the x-intercepts are. So now we're going to apply the zero product rule. What does that mean? Set it equal to 0. And then we're going to figure out x values. So subtract 6. X equals negative 6. X equals negative 2, and add 2 there, x equals positive 2. Now all of those are to the first power, so that would be a odd is shoot through. So let's go at negative 6. This is what it means to label, negative 2, positive 2. We're just making a rough sketch here. I know that the highest degree here is odd, and leading coefficient is positive, so I'm going to have a start up and down. And because it's to the first power, each of those are just going to shoot through. So let's go ahead and sketch our graph. See if this color pencil works. And then you can even put some details. You don't need to know this one, but negative 24, because if you make your x value 0, those all go away and you'll be left with negative 24. So I know my graph's going to go there. Sketch it. How do you negative 2? I don't know how to get in there. Let's take a look at what a graph might look like. What was I thinking? Odds, like x to the first, start down and up, so that's where I was stuck at. It should have been like this, right? And that would have been a flipped a equals negative 1, so didn't work. Let's use blue. So I'm going to shoot through negative 6, come back down to negative 2, goes through negative 24, and up there. There we go. There we go. So labeling the x-intercepts, end behavior starts down, ends up. Question number 8, graph. Make sure you label all your x-intercepts. We're going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to make a chart. Although this means you write out x plus 4 3 times, just to find the 0, you can just do it once, unless you want to do it 3 separate times. Feel free to do so. So these are our x-intercepts. I usually put the smaller number on top, and then 1 here, and then the degree or the multiplicity. What is a multiplicity? You just look above it. So this is 3, odd or even. Odds, we do shoot-throughs. 1, you're going to do, this is a power of 1, so degree of 1, and then shoot-through. Also, we talked about just getting a basic graph. How do you get a basic graph? So this is x to the 3rd, this is x to the 1st, so that would be x to the 4th power. But it is a leading coefficient that is negative, so the easiest even that I know is x to the 2nd. But if you put a negative in front, it's going to flip. It's going to reflect over the x-axis, so our graph is going to start down and down. Let's try to highlight that. Negative sign starts down, ends down. And we're going to go through -4. We're going to go through 1. See if we can get there. They're going to have a shoot through, and you shouldn't have a parabola. We also know that there should be another turning point, right? Maybe it does something like that. Because remember, the max number of turning points is equal to the degree minus 1. So 1, 2, 3. And it says label all your intercepts. So here, I did say all intercepts, so there are both x's and y's. So y-intercept just means make x equals 0. So this would be 4 cubed times a -1. So 4, 16, and 56. So this would be a positive 56. So maybe you say that's 56. All right, question number 9. Convert the polynomial into vertex form. And then graph in vertex form. So you have standard form, no parentheses, and we need to get one set of parentheses when we see it. So what do you have to do? You're going to have to complete the square. In order to complete the square, you're going to have to get some kind of number that we talked about in that maroon color and the orange color. They have to equal 0. Okay, so how do you complete the square? Well, you're going to have to use the formula b over 2 squared, and their b value is -6. So -6 divided by 2, so half of -6 is -3, and -3 is 9. Now if I put a 9 here, plus 9, you don't need the parentheses and essentially to group these 3 terms, so positive 9, in this case would be -9. The maroon plus the orange must equal 0. Now, why did I do that? Because right here now we can factor. Right? 9, 1 times 9, b value is -6. My two numbers that multiply are -3 and -3. -3 times -3 is positive 9. -3 plus -3 is -6. So this will become x minus 3, x minus 3, and it gives you -7. And this is called a perfect trinomial square. This is how you know you're doing it correctly. And so we have our vertex form from standard to vertex form. Let's write g of x. Let's kind of box this. Okay. Now, the vertex form for quadratics is a times x minus h squared plus k. And our h value is 3, and our k value is -7. So that is our vertex. H comma k is the vertex, and that is 3, -7. Let's graph that. 3, -7 is to the right, 3, and down -7. So zoom out. So there's my vertex in blue. 3, -7. Let's label it. Right 3 down -7 is our HK. This is our minimum. And then I just know that it's going to go up. I know it's up because my A value is +1. Opens up. Now remember, this temptation is your y-intercept is not -7. Your y-intercept is actually 2. Let's note that on our graph. 2. How do I show 2? What color can I use? This 2 here should go right there. What does that mean for my graph? We kind of missed it, but the graph should probably look something like this. Maybe a little bit skinnier. And it should go through this point, 2 on the y-axis. But there's your graph. So we have 4 points for each free response plus 2 points for 6B. So you have 18 for the back side, 18, and then I forgot what we said for the front side. But I'll give you some kind of total. Hopefully that was helpful. Good luck.
Math.
Say it again.
Our